Hello, and welcome to Get Recc'd. I am your host, Stephen Falgout.
And I am your other host, Louis Falgout. Now, Get Recc'd is our normally bi-weekly podcast where Stephen and I will recommend something to each other, whether it be a film, an album, a TV show, or whatever. And I have the wrong overlay up. And today, and then in the next episode, we come back together and talk about those recommendations.
Sorry, folks, it's been about a month, so we're still remembering how to, what is this? What is a show?
I completely forgot how to do Get Recc'd. It was...
Yeah.
But it's okay, I remember now.
Yeah, exactly. What is a show? A miserable pile of secrets. That's what, from the hit video game, remember when they say that?
No.
Okay, me neither. Hey everyone, welcome. This is the first 2 minutes of Get Recc'd, everyone's favorite portion of the podcast, where we give our goofs. So now that goof is out the way,
yeah, it was quite funny.
Time to move on.
Yeah, we do have to move on. We did oh shit! One last thing. This is Re-Recc, meaning that we recommended things related to other things we've previously recommended, and for that reason, we will go ahead and jump right into what I recommended to Steven, if that's okay with you, Steven.
Yeah, and this is the last of our Re-Recc series. It was kind of a trilogy. So in the next episode, and we'll talk about this when we get to our recommendations, we'll be moving on to better things, I guess.
I think so. We'll see.
Probably not, to be honest.
As in international fame. And
yeah, we're only doing famous things from here on out. None of that indie crap. None of that underground stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot of underground stuff, especially today. And I think that jumps us into what we wanted to begin with, Stephen, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so last episode, I re-recced to Stephen 4 more episodes of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. I previously recommended this to Stephen, I think 15 episodes ago or something like that. And I don't really think there's much else I need to say. We're going to go episode for episode here, and we're going to go like rush hour, okay? So this is like a quick time, snappy thing, okay? All right, sounds good. Do you have anything to say before we start going episode to episode here?
The only thing I wanted to say, Louis, is you're right. This is underground because it should be under the ground because of how bad it is.
Nice.
Thank you.
Turn myself up is what it sounds like everyone's saying. If you guys want me to turn Steven down and turn myself down, well, now our audio's probably peaking. All right. The first episode we'll talk about here is Suited for Success. I'll let Steven begin.
This is not the one with Weird Al yet, right? No, this is not. This is so Suited for Success. Okay, so I will say, just in general, this is a Re-Recc series. Louis, you recommended to me some other My Little Pony episodes, some episodes back of our podcast. I basically blacked that out. After we talked about it, I pushed that completely out of my brain. So pretty much anything related to My Little Pony, I forgot. So I just want to mention, and I know I mentioned this last time because when I heard it again, it all came rushing back. Every pony, that is the stupidest thing.
Yep.
I hate that so much, and they use it all the time. Anyway, that aside, that was just a little aside, because that happens in all the episodes. In this episode, the one pony, she gets all her friends together, and she has to make them nice dresses. There's a fashion show. It ultimately turns out that a big wig is going to be there at the fashion show. I will say this episode, so first of all, I actually like the song, where they're talking about the dresses and having to make a dress and having to make your clients happy and whatever. I thought this episode did actually it was very an interesting take on an industry that is client driven, right? I thought that it was kind of a pretty adult interpretation of, she's working very hard for her friends. She makes them something that she really loves and enjoys, but it doesn't meet their needs. So ultimately, they, as the client, are number one and need to be happy. So she makes a dress exclusively tailored individually for each of them. And then it completely bombs on the carpet, and everyone makes fun of everything that they like, which is also interesting. And then by the end of this episode, it turns out that, well, her friend should have appreciated the gift that she gave them and should have used the dress that the pony wanted to make for them. And the dude loved them and he wants 10,000 more copies or whatever. So really the moral of the story here is just don't listen to what your client wants. Just do your own shit. Give them whatever you want. Even if they're not happy, it's cool. Mm-hmm. You'll probably make a lot of money.
Well, ultimately, like, don't give your client what they want if you have to make a fashion show out of it. That's the message,
Which was just happening to me the other day, actually, so it really hit close to home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was making my own fashion show, and man...
Well, Steven, I want to formally apologize for what I made you make me. Okay, that was really
I know.
Okay, actually,
yeah, it had filth on it. the album art for filth.
Yeah, I was upset people didn't appreciate that, but apparently you didn't either. So I don't know what to tell you. Okay. So first of all, I think it's really cool that you just said everything I wanted to say for me. I mean, I don't know what to bounce off of. Like, I agree with everything you said. That was something that I always adored about this episode in particular, and you picked up on it, so cool. Okay. I don't know. I said it was rush hour, and I thought it wasn't going to be, but in this case, I guess it is because you just did all the work.
Yeah, we'll go somewhat quick through these. I would say I won't give a full review of them at the end as we talk about them, but I'll say this one I enjoyed, and so we'll come back to that.
We can do the scores at the end. Okay, yeah. So the next episode was Pinkie Pride, and yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is the one with Weird Al Yankovic. Why did they do this to him?
Why did they do this to him?
Why did they do this to him? Mm-hmm. Why? With that being said, first of all, I think I mentioned this last time, but Pinkie Pie is absolutely my least favorite. She annoys me so much, and this episode was completely revolved around her, so that was really great. Hearing the songs on this one, I would say I didn't enjoy. There were a lot of songs in this one, and I would say I did not enjoy more than I did. But any one with Weird Al was amazing. So both of those, I think he had like 2 songs. Those were really good. Even the one with him and Pinkie Pie, like doing their back and forth as they like battle royale, trying to figure out who throws a better party. I thought that was kind of fun too. This episode. So I did like Weird Al's character. I thought he absolutely did a great job. They bust out the accordion, which, I mean, of course, I guess you have to when he's around. I thought the premise was okay. Like, the premise didn't really click with me. It's something that I've seen so many times before. Like, a newcomer comes in and they have to battle it out to figure out who's the best. But I will say the resolution of this episode where Pinkie Pie ultimately decides again that she should put her friend first over this like meaningless squabble with a Weird Al grilled cheese pony or whatever. Speaking of which, can we just talk about, help me understand exactly how a cutie mark works. It's supposed to differentiate them and kind of gives them some meaning, right? Like,
yeah.
Like the horse with the apples, mm-hmm. Applejack or whatever her name is. Mm-hmm. She's like a country girl, loves the apples, so she's got an apple cutie mark. So does Weird Al's character love grilled cheese? Is he really good at making grilled cheese?
No, I thought it looked like an accordion. Oh, I thought it looked like an accordion with cheese in it. I can't remember. Off the top of my head. Yeah, I don't know how a cutie mark works. That explains an episode you haven't watched, but it's basically just like it's like it's almost like the pony equivalent of puberty. Like, they find out what they're destined to do for the rest of their life, and then they get the mark when they're like kids. And I guess
he's destined to make grilled cheese sandwiches.
I think it's like he's I could have sworn it was like a grilled cheese sandwich in the shape of an accordion. I could have sworn.
Well, it's like 2 halves of grilled cheese that are being like pulled apart, and there's cheese in the middle, so it's kind of like an accordion.
It's supposed to look like an accordion, but it's like his name is Cheese Sandwich, so it's out of cheese. I don't know. I can't help you.
Anyway, But yeah, like I mentioned, I think that the way it resolved was okay. It was a little bit of a different take on this whole thing, where she kind of forfeited and let her friend come first, and then it turned out grilled cheese sandwich was kind of a loner and took after Pinkie Pie and set out on an expedition to throw wild parties or something, and they all get together and throw a party.
Yeah.
You have any additional thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have conflicting thoughts. I mean, okay, so first of all, Weird Al did this to himself, because I remember it. Weird Al specifically said he would be on it because I think somebody asked him or some. Of course they did. He said he would be on it, and then he was on it. And you know, I mean, I can't. I guess it's just kind of like it's kind of Weird Al syndrome, where I don't know if it's possible for Weird Al to do anything that like isn't awesome. Because
so I completely agree with you there, but I would say this: do you think this was the best use of him?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Think so?
Absolutely. I mean, well, for starters,
that second song for sure, where they're like doing all that goofiness and they're like goofing off, like that's 100% him. But other than that, like, they start. I just don't think like him as a party traveling nomad is quite what I picture him as like the best use of him as a character in this.
I mean, like maybe not.
Andrew WK, yes,
but it's
they would have got Andrew WK.
They could have gotten that too. No, I think that's the thing, right? So like, yeah, I guess to me, this character's already just pretty close to just being Weird Al, and not in like his actual character itself, but just the way that he talks and acts. It's like basically just Weird Al. I don't ever call him by his actual name.
Albert Kovic.
Yeah. I mean, you're right that but like what? Should they get even closer to it actually being Weird Al, so that you have a pony equivalent of somebody who parodies other songs? Well, I mean, he does do that actually in the episode. But do you have a pony equivalent of like a song parodist? I mean, I don't really know. Like,
no. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in the context of the episode.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
I think the episode context. I don't know if that really gelled with me or it fit 100%. I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's just like, if you separate Weird Al from it to some extent, like, he did an incredible job with what the character was supposed to be, didn't he? I mean, I don't really know if, I don't know. But yeah, anyway, no, I mean, you're right that, like, story-wise, it's something you've seen before, but you could probably say that for nearly every single episode of this show. It's kind of irrelevant anyway, because I always think that in an episode like this, they do it so remarkably well, and with so much energy and creativity as well in this case. And maybe that's just by bringing Weird Al and having everything be polka. But it fits incredibly well. And yes, it's a musical episode, and I like that too, because it keeps the pace really fast, at least faster than it otherwise would have been, which again is important, because really when it comes to something like this, you just want to see Weird Al in it. And he's great. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't think that this is only good because Weird Al is in it. I just think that, like, he does such a great job with that character, which is pretty essential to making this work in the first place. And I love the way that that him and Pinkie interact in it. So yeah, okay. Should we move on to the next one?
I did like the part in the song where she has a giant piñata cake and she starts singing in Spanish and dumps it on the pony's head.
Oh yeah, good. That was a good. Yeah, that's something good.
So this one was okay. Moving on.
Okay. Yep. Cutie Map.
Okay. So this is another one of those two-parters, which I forgot this show did. So, the idea, first of all, I had no context for what was going on, but it didn't really matter. Ultimately, they're trying to do friendship things now, and I guess they're like friendship superheroes. It's whatever, to be honest. But they have a big map, and the map now shows them where they have to go. So they had to go to this town where this, I don't know if I'd call the pony a dictator, but this dictator figure has equalized everyone in her town, where now they don't have cutie marks anymore. They all have equal signs, and everyone's exactly the same. So that way there's no diversity and there's no conflict, essentially. Ultimately, it gets to the point where a couple of the ponies, they kind of want their cutie marks back. They take our group of friends into the cellar into the underground, if you will. And then they tell them that there's this secret staff and all this nonsense. All their cutie marks are in a cave locked up. So they go, and the end of the first episode is they get our group of friends get their cutie marks taken away by this staff, and now they've been equalized. In the second part, essentially, they no longer have their cutie marks. They're trying to be indoctrinated. They push Fluttershy out because she was the one of all of the entire group who kind of, appreciated the hospitality and thought the town looked nice, and they felt like she would be the one who would most be convincing that they actually have become turned, so that way they could try to fight to get their cutie marks back. Ultimately, some nonsense happens. They out the dictator because she still has her cutie mark because she needs it to be able to perform the magic or something. I don't really know. I never really thought her motivation was very clear, like why she was doing this to everyone, but she gets the group of friends cutie marks in these jars. Since she has the princesses, she thinks that'll help to make everyone else around Equestria indoctrinate into her cult. Ultimately, some of the ponies that helped them in the beginning decide to go get fight for their cutie marks back after they see that their ruler was a phony, and then they chase her down to save our group of friends cutie marks. The bad guy gets away. I don't know if that becomes important later. It doesn't really matter to me, to be honest, but the bad guy does get away. The staff was a fake. It was all her magic. And then that's kind of the episode. Everyone's all happy. The town now all has their own creativity and originality brought back to them, and they all party like a lot of these episodes end, where there's kind of a party. I thought that... So I don't remember there being too many songs in these set. I don't even know if there even are any.
There was a song, yeah. Remember, she has the town sing a song. It was like that, like Russian propaganda.
Oh yeah. It was kind of yeah. That's right. Which is fine. I think it definitely served its purpose. So it's not one of the best songs in all the episodes that I've watched, obviously, but it was very specifically there for. It was kind of like a cult chant.
No, it's like I said. It sounded like a Soviet propaganda song. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I like these two episodes. I thought that the premise, while again not necessarily unique, I thought was very creative and was an interesting take on it. I think that now that they're like friendship superheroes, that was kind of fun, seeing them having to go out to this like remote part of the world and bring friendship back to this group of individuals who no longer have creativity. So I thought that was interesting. Like I said, either I missed it because it was kind of moving sort of fast in the second half, or I just never really picked up on what the villain's motivation necessarily was for this, but that's fine. I thought that the villain was good. She wasn't like overtly evil necessarily, although she was definitely a villain. And ultimately, I thought at the very end of this, when everyone got back together and they got their originality back and they got their creativity back, and when they got their cutie marks back, they were able to perform special tasks to take down the villain, which was not our heroes, which usually these things kind of devolve into the core group doing something to save the day. The core group were kind of taken out of the mix. The thing where they the guy who had like a total ski bro accent, which was
I forgot about
something, gets his skis back and he like makes an avalanche to stop. I thought that was kind of cool, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'll just to pick up on what you missed. So her motivation. I don't remember which part it was revealed in because I didn't rewatch this for this, but I've seen it a few times. Her motivation is like in her view, and I mean this is explored later as to why this is, but I mean it doesn't really matter. Like having cutie marks, or more specifically, having like unique talents or unique individual personalities is what breaks up groups of friends, because she's like, oh, well, if people are too different, then they can't get along. I mean, it's a kind of obvious thing, so you can get the moral. But yeah, that was the idea, is you equalize them all so that everybody gets along easier because nobody stands out.
I picked up on that, and that was recurring throughout these sets of episodes. They kept repeating that, but why was she doing it?
Yeah, like, that's revealed in a
betray her.
That's revealed in a later episode. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but sure. Soon probing. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I mean, well, what I really like about this episode in particular is I think the one thing I kind of don't like is the way it resolves. Like, I remember there's one guy who, like, is really good at making balloons, and they have to cross, like, a big bridge, and he just makes a giant balloon bridge with, like, 2 balloons. It's pretty fucking dumb.
And the thing about that, which I think is, like, makes it even worse, is they have Pegasi, and right after they make that bridge, the Pegasi pick up the pony with the skis. So why didn't you see that?
Do they really?
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah. Well, anyway, but besides that, though, I think everything before that is actually pretty goddamn excellent. Like, I mean, the motivation here is a pretty obvious ploy for a moral lesson, but I mean, as far as that kind of thing goes, they did it extraordinarily well, because I love that, like, they have all these, like, kind of historical callbacks in this episode, and, like, not just to, like, the Soviet Union, because it's not about communism or anything, but I'm just saying, like, it has these callbacks to these sort of, like, dictatorial, small town, like, impoverished regimes that I just think are really clever. And I think there's the whole thing about, like, the equal sign is just it's just really stark and cool. I think the whole thing kind of and maybe a lot of that was just, like, this episode coming in season 5 this late on. It seemed like a lot more I don't know, it just seemed more I don't want to say dark. I'm trying to think of a word, not dark, but it was like a more mature idea here, I think, for what the show had done before, especially in terms of, like, the cutie mark thing, finally addressing the fact. I mean, first of all, some of these ponies have cutie marks that are, like, so fucking stupid they couldn't possibly stand out in any way. Like, if you look in the background, you'll notice people with, like, basketballs and shit, or, like, weights. And so finally kind of addressing that and making it into, like, an actual problem was pretty cool. And yeah, and I think Starlight Glimmer is a really great villain too. I love her presence, and also the fact that she isn't just outwardly evil. Like, she's sinister, but she's not just, like, outwardly evil, which I really like.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the final one is Amending Fences.
Okay, this is the episode that I felt was kind of the most blah, honestly. So the idea is Twilight Sparkle, the little dragon, I just forgot his name, but the little dragon reminds her that she used to have friends, and she's better now, because now she's the queen of friendship, and she doesn't have to remember her old friends, and she's like, oh wait, I have to remember my old friends. So she goes back to the main town place. You can see how much I know about this show, even though I literally just watched it. She goes back to the main town place, Celestria? Is that right?
Camelot.
Yeah, that one. She goes back there, and she tries to find her old friend. She does. She apologizes to 3 of them, and they're kind of like, oh, it's okay. You were always kind of aloof. You didn't really say goodbye, but it's whatever. We didn't take it personally. But then she remembers one final friend who did take it personally. Moonlight or something? Moondancer. So most of this episode is her just trying to work her way back into Moondancer's good graces, and Moondancer is very shy, or not shy, very, very much a hermit, always studying. The idea is that she kind of put herself out there at one party, and Twilight Sparkle didn't ever show up, so now since then she's kind of gone back into hiding, essentially, and ultimately it resolves with that they try to take her out to dinner, and she's not really having it. Ultimately, it resolves with them bringing her to a party. And I thought, actually, first of all, there were, again, I think one thing I will applaud this show for is they handle a lot of these situations in very grown-up adult ways. Like the idea of a friend who's kind of not ever there, and other friends just kind of having to accept that. And, you know, Twilight Sparkle kind of went away without saying goodbye. And some of them were okay with that, but some of them took it very hard. And then also this episode ultimately resolves with Twilight Sparkle trying to put on a party and thinking it'll all go away, which in a lot of these episodes is kind of how things do resolve, but it doesn't all go away. Moondancer feels very hurt, and says that, that party was the first time I really put myself out there, and this isn't going to fix things. And she starts to cry. She says some pretty hurtful things. But then Twilight Sparkle kind of gets over that by not necessarily, again, putting it back on her, because a lot of this as well feels very selfish. And I think it's supposed to intentionally feel that way. Twilight Sparkle is doing this, but it's really for her own gain, not necessarily for this other person's gain. She feels really bad because she hurt her friend, and she wants her friend to not feel bad. But ultimately, it's like her doing all this work to make that happen for herself so she doesn't feel bad. So ultimately, she gets over it by saying, look, you have all these other friends who were there for you that day. And, I wasn't there for you, but I want to try to get better. And I thought that was a very adult and way to handle this situation and to kind of present this. So for that, I definitely think that this episode did a really good job. But ultimately, for me, I like the episode. I just thought it was okay.
Okay. Well, in service of explaining why this episode was so average, you just explained why this is one of the best ones. So thank you, I guess. One thing, I guess, after everything that you said, that's kind of what I would say in service of the episode itself.
Well, hold on really quick. I'll wrap up my thoughts with this.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I think that the message and the way that it's presented is really good. The writing here is really good. But I think that, for me, it felt like the pacing of this episode, even though it is so short, it just... like, I understand what they're trying to tell me, and I understand the narrative and the motive and, as I mentioned, the message. And those are strong, but I just don't think that they were visually presented in a way that was really that interesting to me.
Yeah, my dude, but when Moon Dancer started to cry, that got you, No, but actually something that was cool about this, though, I guess I'm just here to provide greater context because, you said everything I would have said about this in a standalone sense, except for, I guess, weak visual presentation, which, I guess you could say that, but...
I do want to mention one quick thing about the visual presentation. I do think that actually this show started to look a lot better. I feel like one of my critiques was how I didn't like how this show looked, especially in the early ones.
Yeah.
These episodes that we watched, I think the earliest episode was a season 2 episode, but then they got much later, and you can tell that their budget had gotten a lot higher.
Yeah, Suited for Success was season 1. Actually, I gave you from season 1 to 5, and yeah, you can definitely see, actually,
a lot more effects, like shadow effects and those sorts of things. But then also the set dressing, I think, just looked really nice, especially in this episode, Amending Fences. I really noticed how nice the set dressing and the backgrounds and all of that looked.
Right. So what you're saying is, as you're talking about this, you're realizing how amazing it is.
It's the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I can tell. No, actually, visual presentation-wise, I remember, a distinct number of, you don't call them shots, I guess frames, I don't fucking know. We'll say shots. Of shots and, visual imagery here that was actually pretty fucking stellar. For as simple as this, setting is, considering she's kind of just going house to house in this little town, they did a lot of really, really cool, and sometimes even mildly symbolic stuff too, visually, like some of the stuff in the picture frames, the reflections in the glass. It's all little stuff because, again, there's nothing grand to look at here, but for considering how small scale this is, I actually think there's a lot of really incredible looking things. And what the hell is happening in our chat? I wasn't going to call it out, but anyway. So yes. But yeah, no, just to provide a little bit of extra context, and this is not why I like this episode. I think this episode absolutely stands on its own. And you will have noticed, you did watch the series premiere of this last time, although apparently you forgot all of it. But they call back to it in this episode, if you remember. They show a scene from it in the beginning of the season 1 premiere. Twilight's running away, and then her friend's like, hey, you want to come to Moon Dancer's party? And she's like, I gotta go, and then she runs. And it's really stupid in that episode. And I remember you said it was stupid too, because it was you have no idea why anybody would like her in the first place. You know what I mean? Why does she even have friends? Why should I care? It's it was just such a dumb and poorly developed scene then, and then to have this episode bring it back and actually give it ramifications is just one of the coolest things. It's just so That's just so great because it actually developed something that really didn't even need development, but I think left without development, it seems so much worse just to be left behind. Like, and I mean, I guess it took 5 seasons, but I love the way it's structured too, where like she has friends who the other group of friends didn't care, but then you eventually find Moondancer, who also cleverly is like a recolor of Twilight, which is actually clever and not lazy because it actually reflects the fact that she's like what would have happened to Twilight if she didn't move out of Canterlot. Pretty cool. But I love that, like, she comes up and she did actually hurt someone, even though she thought that she didn't. And, of course, different people are going to handle that different ways. But I like that acknowledgement was there as well. And, yeah, I don't know. It gets me, you know? It gets me. Okay. Anyway, we should do the final review. I got to pull the fucking thing up. Okay, you go first.
Okay, so I would say that I don't really remember 100% my thoughts of the last set, but I think I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed the last time I watched this show.
Well, we'll see. I remember.
Ultimately, all these episodes were good to pretty good.
Okay, you enjoyed it less than last time then.
Okay, so
significantly.
Okay, good. I don't know. I think that this show, it just is too much.
In what
it
way?
Really is. Like, these characters they just really great. I just cannot stand most of these characters. Pinkie Pie especially. But even in some of these episodes, Lightning Dash got really on my nerves.
Lightning
Rainbow Dash, nice. Rainbow Dash.
No, get them wrong. It makes it way better.
Fluttershy was just like so much a stereotype and so pushed in being that stereotype, especially in that two-parter, that it just got really annoying. I think that should I grade these? I gave kind of individual thoughts in the episode, so you want me to give a total collective grade on these 4? Is that how you want to do this?
Well, you didn't give one for each one. Just go in each one individually. I think it's probably best.
Okay, you want to give each one. Okay.
They're so split up. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to.
So let's see. The first one was... See, this is how quickly I forget about this show. Nice. I don't even remember what I watched. What
Suited for Success. I'll say them. It's okay.
Suited for Success. Okay. That one, I'd probably give around a 7. I like the music. I like the premise. I thought that there was some very adult themes, and the moral was really good. Then the Pinkie Pride, I'd probably give that one more around a 5. Weird Al is the only reason I'm giving that one a 5, because that episode centered around my least favorite character. The two-parter, I'd probably give more around 8. I actually really did like that two-parter. Like I mentioned, Fluttershy kind of got annoying to me, but for the most part, I liked her role in that series of episodes. I think each of the characters individually had a moment to shine. The villain was really good, and I did actually like the way that it resolved. And then Amending Fences, I'd probably give, again, probably around a 7. I thought the moral was really strong. I thought that the characters and the moral and the message was really strong. I thought that the characters were interesting, and for as little as we got to know them, really had some unique characteristics. But ultimately, like I mentioned, kind of just the visual presentation of that story felt kind of slow to me. So on a whole, I guess if you average that, it's about a 6, a 7, something like that.
Yeah, like a 7. Yeah. Well, last time you gave 2 episodes 9, so yes, you definitely liked this less. Okay. Yeah, okay, so this is the round where Lewis on Get Recc'd wholly humiliates himself by terribly overrating several MLP episodes from a cartoon for little kids. Pentex, or somebody called me an MLP fanboy earlier. I'm going to prove you right. Suited for Success, give that one a 10. Not only do I think the moral is super cool, and, well, I don't know, you called it adult. Is it adult? I guess so. I guess kids don't really have to deal with that. But, you know, whatever.
I don't think kids have very many clients.
Yeah, not generally, unless they set up those lemonade stands, but I don't think anybody gives a fuck about that.
Or they're like sweat workers.
Oh, God. Okay, well, he had to take it there, folks. It wasn't me, okay? Anyway, yeah, like, I I think the dialogue in that episode is fucking brilliant. Like, there's so many funny, great, memorable lines in there. And the song is pretty good. But, I mean, the song is better in the context of the episode than it is on its own, obviously. But I think it does a fantastic job of speeding the episode along. And frankly, I mean, I debate this with myself, like, all the time. Not, like, literally out loud. But... I think Suited for Success might be the best episode of the show, actually. Maybe not. It's up there anyway. Top 3. Okay, there you go. Pinkie Pride, I will give another 10 because I think it's fucking hilarious. I think Weird Al is... I mean, incredible in the episode. Like, genuinely, like, I was surprised when I saw it because, I mean, I thought it was going to be like, oh, it's a cameo, and, like, Weird Al's going to show up and Weird Al it up. I mean, he did. But it also, they actually made a great story out of it, too. You know, it's a musical episode, and no, not all of the songs are great. But once again, the pace is so quick, and a lot of that is because it's a musical episode. I need to stop looking at the chat because it's throwing me off so much. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Anyway, yeah, pace is great. It's really funny. I love it. It's great. Okay. What was the next one? Cutie Map. Give it a 9. Again, the only thing I don't like about Cutie Map is the resolution, and I actually, the resolution's, I mean, not terrible in general. Again, the balloon thing is just completely fucking stupid to me. And also, I think, even though it makes sense the town people kind of rise up, I think the town people are by far the least interesting characters in the episode. So kind of having them be part of the reason why the whole thing resolves isn't great. But literally everything else about it, I think, is just excellent. And I already explained that, so I don't need to explain it again. And then Amending Fences, I'm giving that one another 10 because I think it's, well, not only is it, I was going to say it's sweet. I mean, yeah, it is sweet. But I think for all the reasons Steven said, and then proceeded to call it the most blah one, I would say exactly the same thing and say it's, you know, this is like a top 10 episode at least. But like truly, I think, I don't know, it just really, it gets my feels, you know, it's good stuff. And anyway, we need to move on to something that gets my feels in a different way.
So quickly, with that being said, I will never watch My Little Pony
That's true.
again.
He
That's
won't.
it.
That's true, he won't. I can't do anything about it. Okay. Steven, what did you recommend to me? How is it a Re-Recc? And we'll get into it.
My hell is over. I've been unleashed from this prison.
Oh, yours is, but mine isn't.
Okay, so Lewis, I am recommending to you, or I had recommended to you, The Fifth Element. The reason why this really is a movie poster, huh? That's not even the one that I was looking at. Look at him being chased by the police. That's exciting. Okay, the reason why I had recommended this to you, because this is directed by Luc Besson, who directed Valerian, City of a Thousand Planets, which I had recommended to you. His probably best movie, maybe we'll talk about this, I'll say this. Fifth Element is probably his most well-known movie, maybe followed by Lucy, because I don't think anyone remembers Valerian, which is sad, because that's a gem, a masterpiece of cinema. Okay, with that being said, Lewis, The Fifth Element.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so... Brief note on Valerian, and I guess I forgot about a lot of Valerian. Probably a good thing. But I know I really didn't like it. The thing about Valerian was, if I remember right, the worst thing about Valerian was the fact that the two leads were absolutely awful. And everything else about Valerian, there was a lot of stuff that didn't make sense, but there was like some like visual flair, I suppose, though I remember even that looked a little ugly-ish. Basically, I don't remember that movie being intolerable for me. It was really bad. I don't remember it being horrible. And maybe I just forgot or something, but I remember there were horrible scenes. But man, of all the movies that we've watched on Get Recc'd, of all the movies we've talked about, there is not one that I have hated as much as this. As in, like, I was sitting there watching this and absolutely dreading my life for having to experience this fucking movie. I can't believe I've heard good things about this movie. I can't believe that. I seriously can't. I was watching this. The first scene was horrendous. I mean, truly horrendous. All of the acting was horrifically over the top when it wasn't just completely like terrible. The reaction shots that were being shown were like ridiculous and over the top and like cartoonish. But the film didn't have a sense about it that's like. It didn't have the sensibility in terms of the story and visual presentation that it wanted to look like a cartoon. It just really seemed like this director has this style where he wants everything to be as obscenely and insanely over the top and corny as humanly possible. And my God, I was already grated by that opening scene, and it only got worse. Like, every single new character who was introduced, except for Bruce Willis, was the fucking worst, and it was always in some different way too. Like the film always found like some different way to piss me off, because you have Lilu, who Mila Jovovich, right? That's who plays Lilu.
Yeah.
You have Lilu, who is like, every single time she's on screen, she is like hamming it up so insanely hard. She's like this. She is. I'm not even gonna put the spoiler tag up like once, but because it doesn't matter. But if you guys don't want to be spoiled or whatever the hell, her thing is like, she's the fifth element, so she's like not human, I suppose. So her being here, everything's like alien to her. And God, it must have been like every single scene this director was like, I want you to act like you're not from Earth as much as you possibly can. And so like every scene she's like smacking things, or like she's like there's a scene where she eats a shit ton of chicken while she's staring at a computer screen with like words whizzing by her. And it's like, I know the worst part about all this, maybe not the worst part, but I know that this was intentional. Like, it's the editing, it's the lighting, it's all of the actors, it's the characters. Like, this is exactly the kind of tone that this like director wants to present. And I don't know if that makes it better or worse, because at least like in Valerian, I remember sort of being confused tonally. This, I mean, I now understand Valerian more because I see what this director tries to do with these sci-fi movies, and God, I am not behind it at all. And there's plenty more that I hate, but I'll let Steven jump in before I talk about some of the other stuff.
And Mila Jovovich really is just there to get naked a couple times, to be honest.
Which a lot of the women who are in this movie are just there for sex appeal, and it's like really awful. There's a lot of like, and it's really unabashedly so too. Like there's all of these settings, and you could say it's just like a futuristic thing where you wanted to present the future over sexualized, but we all know that would be a bullshit excuse. There's like all these scenes where they do like this really hammy like almost like a 60s flight attendant kind of thing, where like they just hire women because they're hot and then they act hot, and then there's a character who just swoons all the ladies. I found that very awful as well, but anyway.
Yeah, I think the characters here are really what make this. Can we just talk about, because he's staring me in the face right now on this movie poster, and no, I'm not talking about Bruce Willis. Can we talk about Gary Oldman in this film?
Dear Lord.
How did they get Gary Oldman? You know what? Actually, never mind. I say that, but Gary Oldman's repertoire is really, really something. But, like, what is he supposed to be? Like, just in general, the visual direction for these things, this and Valerian, like, what? They're so outlandish that it's, like, not even... It's silly in a way that is just silly for silly's sake.
But it's really ugly as well.
And it's incredibly ugly. Like those first aliens, like what the hell is that?
Oh dear.
It's like a turtle. It's like the Goomba from the Mario Brothers movie. It's fucking walking around with a little head, and you're supposed to take it seriously too. Like,
well, it's hard to tell if you're supposed to take it seriously, and that kind of annoys me.
They play that first segment for laughs.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, either it's played for laughs or it's serious. Either way, it's awful. I don't know if it matters, but sure.
And Mila Jovovich's character is supposed to be this superhuman, and you get a little bit of that. She does have this one scene where, first of all, can we talk about the back and forth cuts that they do a couple times, where it's like one character's talking to someone else, and then it switches to two other characters having the exact same
Yes! Oh my god! What was that scene? Oh, there was one scene that did this that was fucking horrible. I just can't remember. It was like, because this...
It was when the general was talking to the president.
Yes!
And Mila Jovovich's character was talking to the priest.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah, and then they do it a couple times. There's like Mila Jovovich's fight scene, Lilo's fight scene in the ballroom is happening at the same time as this like opera singer is singing, and then it divulges into this weird like techno pop song.
And it was almost cool too. That was the thing that pissed me off the most. This fight scene was almost cool. I was like, you had the opera singer, you cut to Mila Jovovich about to fight these aliens. I mean, everything looked terrible, but I was used to that by this point. And I was like, oh wow, this is kind of neat. And then like the beat kicked in. I mean, it was kind of bad, but whatever the case, like the opera singer started to interwove with that, and I was like, whoa, this is actually kind of neat. And then it cut back to the opera singer, and she was doing like these obnoxious dance moves, as if the that like electro pop, future pop, whatever the fuck song was actually playing behind her. And immediately I lost it. It lost me.
Yeah, there's so much here that whole scene where everyone shows up at Bruce Willis's apartment and he like puts them in the refrigerator and he puts her on the top and it's going up and down, and the priest he puts in a bed and it turns out it shrinks wraps him for some reason, and really nothing in this film makes any sense, to be honest. I like the part where there's McDonald's.
Oh yeah, the McDonald's product placement, that was nice. And it was just like there. It was just there. They run into a truck of McDonald's as well, which reminded me of Transformers. And Transformers 4, and they run into the Bud Light truck, and Bud Light spills everywhere, except this time it's large fries. I mean, I just like... Okay. And one thing about Valerian that I remember that I will say is better than this, although maybe it won't be in like a decade or so, because again, a lot of this is just age, but visual effects in there, aside from the presentation of those effects, which a lot of time was ugly or uncanny, the visual effects were like top-notch in a lot of scenes. And not only that, but they did a great job mixing that with practical effects as well, which was one thing that I at least could compliment that film for. Now, this film tried a similar thing, and in that way, this film's almost like the 90s Valerian, which is kind of what I thought while I was watching this. It was like Valerian from the 90s. Except now, because it's from the 90s, all of the CG effects haven't held up at all, and man, in some of those car chase scenes, it's just, even in a good movie, I don't know if I could tolerate how that looks. I've seen other films from around this time that had better CG than this, so I can't even, like, I don't know. It's just like, and also in oh my god, it's just, my point is that like, even visual effects didn't look good. Even the set design was ugly, the costume design was ugly, the practical effects were ugly as hell. I mean, everything was ugly. And
yeah, here's my thing, right? This is something I've always find is wrong with, or is a problem with sci-fi, but especially this film and especially Valerian. Who would put that stuff on their body and go, yeah, this is cool? Like the cops, where they have this like visor that goes on only half of their head and like has a like a mohawk, and then her like rubber gel overalls, like I don't get it. Like, who would wear that stuff?
So as well, before I mention Bruce Willis in this film, Bruce Willis is Bruce Willis in this movie. He's not, like, bad. He's just Bruce Willis. But it's another thing of the film that it's impossible to take seriously. And I don't know if I was supposed to or not, but if I wasn't, he just seems like he's not even there. Like, he doesn't respond to things in any way that's even remotely human. He's just like, I'm Bruce Willis, and I'm gonna do a cool thing at, like, every possible chance he gets. And it's very fucking weird. And like in Die Hard, you could definitely say there were scenes where he kind of acted like that, but there are also scenes that really humanized him. That does not happen once in this movie. Like what? His annoying mom calls him three times. Is that supposed to humanize him? Like, no.
And then remember when it was funny when the president talks to the mom?
That was the final scene before the credits. The mom calls back. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The final thing you see is Bruce Willis and Mila Jovovich having sex, which, by the way, God, their love dynamic is so awful. He literally kisses her without her consent at one point in the movie, and they fall for each other later. That?
So I guess his thinking as a character is, oh, she's a princess, she's fallen asleep, I have to give her a kiss. Like, who would do that? They're like, oh, wake her up, and Bruce Willis is like, maybe if I give her a kiss.
Yeah, but of course they do fall in love, right? Like, this God-sent, like, protector of humanity only ends up protecting humanity because she fell in love with Bruce Willis, a guy whose taxi cab she fell into, and he gave her in... Well, no, he didn't give her into the police.
Right, but yeah, here's the thing, right? She is supposed to be this supreme being. They keep talking about how she's perfect and she's a supreme being and she's But then ultimately, if you think about it, she doesn't do anything. It is Bruce Willis that does everything in this film.
Of course.
And then they even at one point talk about it. They're like, oh, she's the supreme being, and she's very strong, but really she's weak. She needs you.
Yeah, like,
it's like
why?
It's like, it's a fuck. It's Bruce Willis.
We haven't even mentioned Chris Tucker's character yet.
I want to spend some time on that one. So before we get there, I just want to go back to Gary Oldman as the villain. First of all, what is that accent? But that's Gary Oldman, you know? It's like,
sure.
He's trying to do a southern
It's just
accent.
another weirdly silly thing that doesn't fit and is just really awkward, yeah.
His design is terrible. He has like this weird half cut that's usually always in his face, which I don't think is intentional.
And like a plastic
And also has like this plastic
thing.
half helmet, I guess. I don't know. Like the main villain is a planet, which we don't really experience that much. But Gary Oldman is supposed to be the villain here, and you know, I thought, like, it was okay, I guess. Like, he was kind of the corporate bad guy who's in cahoots with the supreme evil, which was fine. But there's also, like, 7 other villains. There's those really gross things that I hated looking at.
Yeah.
That were, like, pig people or something.
Yeah.
And then I just want to mention... Okay, so... Gary Oldman ends up on the ship. They're all trying to get the stones. Everyone needs the stones. Where are the stones? Mm-hmm. And Gary Oldman gets off the ship, thought he got the stones. He didn't get the stones. He has to go back. It turns out the stones were inside the opera singer. It's whatever. It doesn't matter. Gary Oldman puts a bomb on the ship. The bomb's ticking down. When Gary Oldman goes back, he puts a little card in to stop the bomb. He's the only one who can stop the bomb. Ooh, but the other bad guys who he double-crossed, they got him because they had a bomb themselves. And guess what? For some reason, they also put it at exactly the same amount of time that was left on the original bomb.
Yeah. Oh, can we also mention the part where there's a bomb alarm that's supposed to go off, but it doesn't go off until coincidentally when the two characters, like 15 minutes after the bomb started, mention there's supposed to be a bomb alarm, and then there's the bomb alarm.
Yeah, can we talk about, like... How does a bomb alarm work? Is it constantly
know.
Scanning the ship for something that is a bomb? Like, what is...
Why were the stones in the opera singer? Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, he had to, like, cut them out of her body. It was weird.
Everything just happens by coincidence. Oh, and by the way, you mentioned the explosion. When the explosion goes off and you get that shot of Bruce Willis and the ship flying away from the explosion, I thought that was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, that was good.
Not in a good way, but like, God, that looked really bad. All the CG looks really bad, which I guess we have to forgive to some extent because it was 97, but it was definitely overdone.
The other thing I wanted to mention was the president's acting. That was the worst. Like, all the other characters here, they are incredibly hammy. Like, the scene where Bruce Willis is looking back at Lilo, who just landed in his cab, and she's, like, doing this weird, like, smile thing, which didn't make any sense to me. Mm-hmm. Also, that she learned how to read "Please help" and then could say that. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Anyway, the president, though, was just, like, so remarkably bad.
Yep. Like,
just dry, didn't deliver any line with any sort of decency. That one really got to me.
Also, he kind of held the same facial expression until the very end for, like, the entire film. Yeah, okay, Chris Tucker. We don't have a lot of time. Chris Tucker time. You go first, I guess, because I think you also wanted to talk about it. It's pretty obvious. God.
Chris Tucker's character here was so over the top. But you know what? I will say this. It was incredibly annoying. Like, I did not like any second of that. But at least I feel like he did a good performance of what that was supposed to be, right? Because that was clearly intentional. That character was supposed to be this over-the-top, incredibly annoying grating. But it became this weird buddy cop. Like, he became... Bruce Willis's sidekick for some reason that's not really clear. Like, why Bruce Willis kept bringing this guy around with him didn't really make any sense.
Well, then he shows up in the movie like almost like over halfway through it too. Like, and then he just kind of is along for the ride, I guess.
Yeah, Chris Tucker's character was a radio host.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis, quote unquote, won this excursion to the ship where the stones were. It was really a whole government thing, but Chris Tucker's character kept being along with Bruce Willis for a little while to get him on the radio. But then he didn't need to be with Bruce Willis didn't need to bring him along anymore. In fact, he became kind of critical in this fight scene where they're like in this main area, and him and Bruce Willis are kind of like working together to take these guys down for some reason. I don't really know. But the worst part, the part on the ship.
Oh my God.
Where Chris Tucker is like going down on one of the
stewardesses, yeah.
And it's one of those scenes again where they keep like flipping back and forth to it because like they're fighting off parasites off the bottom of the ship or something. It wasn't really clear. There's also some guy smoking weed or something.
Yeah, this weird like Jamaican stereotype just there. Okay, for the record, I agree. I don't blame Chris Tucker. I mean, I say his name because I don't know I forget his character and what his character's name is.
Ruby Rod.
Ruby Rod. We'll call it that then. Yeah, no, this is obviously Luc Besson's doing because, I mean, I've seen 2 movies by him at this point. I know this is his doing.
One thing really quick, because I'll forget if I don't mention this. What is with Luc Besson and having this weird interlude of like a musician just being there dancing?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a George Lucas thing, isn't it? George Lucas likes that too.
That's true. Because here you had the opera singer, in Valerian you had Rihanna. Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, so Ruby Rod is First of all, this movie's paced terribly in the first half. Like, it just doesn't know what character to focus on. I mean, it's got a lot to focus on, to be fair to it, but it never balances it. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's like, you'll go for like a solid, like, almost 20 minutes without seeing Bruce Willis, and then he'll just kind of show back up. Also, his introduction made it seem like the opening scene was a dream sequence when it wasn't. Just a lot of really weird edits. But the pacing's really bad, and it gets better in the second half, but Ruby Rod doesn't show up until like halfway through the movie, and from that point on, he is like a main character. And you know, maybe this would be okay if he had more relevance to the plot, but he really doesn't. He's just kind of along for the ride, and I guess Luc Besson thought he was so funny, but really he's just the most, like, just awfully obnoxious character that, like, oh my God, I may have seen in most movies. This is like Jar Jar levels, maybe even lower. Like, my God. And like, and it's like, it doesn't even, and that's the thing. At least you could say Jar Jar had some significant relevance to the plot. Like, this guy, again, he's just like, he just shows up, and it's like, do we really need another character who isn't going to allow us to take any scene remotely seriously? I just don't understand why he was included to begin with, and he's certainly not funny. And yeah, again, give him credit for the performance. I agree. What Luc Besson wanted this character to be, Chris Tucker nails it. But what Luc Besson wanted this character to be is probably the most awful idea he had in this entire film. And this is a film which in itself is an awful idea. So that's impressive.
Yeah, because I think we need to really get to the bottom of it. The fifth element is love. Like, that idea is just so stupid.
And also the fact that he has to fall in love with the fucking protector of Earth to get her to do anything. I can't.
Yeah, the final scene, they all have to figure out how to open the stones, which each one requires them to utilize the elements. So the wind stone, they had to blow on it, they had to figure that out. Then water and fire and earth, and then
sweat. Apparently,
they were like, okay, Lilo, you gotta save everybody. And she's like, oh no, you gotta say it. And then the priest is like, oh, you gotta say it, you gotta say it, you gotta say it. And Bruce Willis is like, I love you. And then, whoa, that was it.
Yeah.
They did it.
Oh, man. Okay. One last thing I wanted to say about this, and this is just more of a comment on Luc Besson, since this is
Re-Recc. Wait, Louis, quickly, though. Okay. Can I ask, like, was she shot?
Was she shot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you mean when she was in the air duct?
Yeah, because then she was shot and she was like okay, but she wasn't. Well,
there was a shot where she had like blood, like some cuts and stuff. It didn't really look like she had like a shot. I guess some bullets grazed her, or maybe the being the protector of Earth and being nearly grazed by some bullets was just so insanely stressful she couldn't do it anymore. Like, I don't know. Anyway. The final thing I want to say about this, again, comment on Luc Besson as a whole, since I've watched these 2 films. This is one of those directors who I think people would normally call style over substance, I guess you could say. But I honestly am of the belief that sometimes style can be substance. Like, I really do. If your style is genuinely good enough, sometimes it can carry a film. But the problem is Luc Besson is attempting to carry a film on style, and his style is god awful. You know who it reminds me of? It reminds me of Baz Luhrmann. It reminds me of like Romeo and Juliet, Great Gatsby. I don't know if you get that vibe, but this
the Moulin Rouge, hyper stylized.
Yeah, really oddly, obnoxiously corny and over the top kind of thing. And it doesn't work there, and it does not work here. Like, this is just... It was so painful. I mean, we've seen movies that are worse than this, that I would say are worse than this on this show, but I have never just hated my time sitting through a movie for Get Recc'd like I did The Fifth Element. And I sat through all of Valerian, which I think was even longer. So that really says something. Yeah, I didn't much care for it. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to give this movie a 2 out of 10. Big old 2. I don't know why I'm not giving it a 1. I just can't go that low, I guess. I feel like that's reserved for some real low tier shit. But the thing is, generally a movie I'd say is that bad is at least entertaining to watch, because it's like, wow, this is so bad, that makes it kind of fun to watch. This movie's just unlikable, right? Like, I didn't have any enjoyment picking this movie apart. It was either annoying me or frustrating me. It was just everything about it. It's so fucking bad. I cannot believe this is popular. I mean, not to say it's not okay if you like it, anyone in the audience. I mean, obviously the style was performed with intention. So if you're able to get behind that, maybe, this will be entertaining for you, I suppose. But I gotta say, this director's style is definitely not for me. I didn't like it. I don't recommend it at all.
So I would say, from what I've heard of Luc Besson, so I liked Lucy, okay, and I've heard his best movie is Leon the Professional, which I've never seen. So I would be interested now to go to that one and see what I think of it. But I will say this, The Fifth Element, I like this more than Valerian. I want to get that out of the way because I don't exactly remember the numerical score I gave Valerian, but if for whatever reason I put this one lower, just know that Valerian then would be even lower than this now. Mm-hmm, yeah. Because I still think Valerian is probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. This, I could at least sit through. Valerian, sitting through that, and then having to sit it through a second time again before we talked about it, was two of the most miserable experiences I've ever had.
Totally understandable as well, yeah.
The Fifth Element, it is very intentionally and extremely campy. And I can see why some people like that. This is a very divisive movie. I know that. It's very polarizing. And if you like, as Lewis mentioned, if you like that style, if you like that camp, I could see you getting extremely into this, and I could see this becoming almost a cult classic for you. But for me, I don't see that at all. This is just the worst kind of camp. I think that it's annoying and just so overbearing. With that being said, I think I'd give it about a 3. I do like Bruce Willis's performance when he is Bruce Willis, but other than that, it's just very hard to watch. It's entertaining in some areas, and in some aspects, I do think some of that style is okay or good, but for the most part, it's just basically a car running into a McDonald's truck.
Mm-hmm. Which is quite good, by the way. That was my favorite scene. I liked that one. It really made me want to go get some McDonald's in the future sometime.
The Fifth Element may be love, but we do not love this. I don't know.
Nice.
Thanks.
Okay, we should move on to the recommendations now. And before, really briefly, I would like to tell everybody, big fucking announcement. Get Recc'd is moving. Yeah, and there'll be another announcement video about this on this channel. But from here on out, I'm going to put a link in the description. It's not in there yet, so when the video goes up, please check it. Go to Casting 404. That's where Get Recc'd is going to stream from here on out. More explanation will be on that in an upcoming video I hopefully put out really soon. But just know, at least for now, Get Recc'd and also NormieCast are streaming to Casting 404 from this point out. So I will have a link to that in the description. We'll sort that out as we go on. And other than that, Re-Recc is over, everybody. I hope you enjoyed Re-Recc. I think we both had a good time. I mean, not with Fifth Element, but, it's all right. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and recommend to you, Steven, the film Yellow Submarine. This is an animated film about the Beatles, though it doesn't star the Beatles in its lead voice acting roles, but they are the main characters of the film. The film was made in 1969. It's an animated film that also is kind of like a series of music videos for Beatles songs. And, yeah, okay. What do you got for me?
So I'm going to recommend something to you that's very recent. In fact, it came out within the last 2 weeks. It's also a film. It is the film Murder Mystery. This is a Netflix original film starring Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston. As I mentioned, it came out only 2 weeks ago, so this is going to be very recent. But by the time we watch it, it'll be a couple weeks old, so we can talk about it. I have some things to say, so I'm curious to see what you'll think of it.
Okay. All right, well, I guess that pretty much wraps it up for today. So, yeah, once again, guys, Casting 404, it'll be in the description. I hope you guys check it out there. We're on CastBox as well, so, we're not going anywhere. But that is the case. And other than that, we don't really have anything else to add, I don't think.
I'll just say, again, sorry for the delay. Life gets in the way sometimes, but we're trying our best to keep this within every 2 weeks. So check back to the channel about that time, and hopefully it'll be there. And if not, then just figure it out.
This was a very specific set of circumstances these last 4 weeks. I don't think we're going to have trouble here on out for the most part, so it should be okay. But yeah, apologize for that. But anyway, yeah, guys, so I hope you enjoyed Re-Recc. It was a good time. And Steven, do you have anything else to add?
I just wanted to say, Lewis, I don't know if you're seeing this too, but I'm looking at recommended videos based on this video we're currently streaming, and boy, oh boy.
I'm curious now. Give me 1 second to please take a look. I'm not...
Let's just say we're getting some real deep YouTube kids stuff out here.
Let's see. What do we got? Whoops. Shut up. I'm not seeing much yet. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you like our podcast, everyone, go ahead and try to check those out. I'm sure they'll give you a similar experience. And with that being said, those are our thoughts. Those are our recommendations. Get Recc'd.